The Grow Showcase is presented by Karen Fox. Karen Fox has been called dynamite in a small package. She brings her expertise from decades of award-winning success in sales, marketing, and leadership to her roles as speaker, trainer, and coach. As founder of Karen the Connector and the Extraordinary Success System, she specializes in helping growth-minded, passionate leaders accelerate their growth while retaining top talent and building better teams through communication, creativity, and connections. Her secret sauce is finding humor in daily situations and creating an atmosphere of fun that encourages teams to be more engaged and productive. She is the perfect liaison between the company, the leader, and the amazing teams they have hired. Karen loves high heels, especially red, considers shopping a hobby, and she will follow you anywhere if you have Reese's peanut butter cups. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Karen Fox.
Thank you, Thad. If you don't mind, I'm going to move some of this because I have people going to help me. I didn't wear them today. Les wanted to know where my red heels were. Trust me, I have many of them. At this time, I have some volunteers going to help me. And if my volunteers would just come on out and stand over here. Thank you. Nice. Do they all look the same? Yeah, yeah. They look like they could all be related, right? Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about the 4 keys to communication. And these are the 4 greatest keys. And Bill, would you mind turning around what's on your paper? What does auditory have to do with that? Dale, would you turn around yours? Kinesthetic. Brian, would you turn around yours? Auditory digital. What does that even mean, right? And Bill, will you turn yours? And visual. What could those have to do with the greatest keys to communication? Except how people learn, how they take in your information. Now, Bill, would you consider yourself an auditory learner? He's an auditory learner. Dale, would you consider yourself kinesthetic? No? Okay. Brian, would you be auditory digital? No? Bill, would you be visual? Okay, so, but if I tried to make them all like I am and make us all look alike, I'm 50-50 visual and auditory. So at this point, those aren't correct. But if I try to make Dale kinesthetic, it changes everything. He's not going to listen to me if I try to make him kinesthetic. So gentlemen, I have a gift for you for being my helpers. Of course, it's Reese's. And you all may sit down. Thank you so much. Give my volunteers a big hand. Let's get this turned back on. Is this back there? Okay. Let's move on through here. Okay, the power is actually in the words we use. And if you don't think so, just start paying attention to this. If I could show you how by using and saying the right thing to communicate better, could you close more business with that? Do you think we could close more business if you said the right thing? Okay. As part of my extraordinary success system and as a master NLP practitioner, I work with teams on the psychology of the communication and learning styles. Now, we talked about it. It's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital. I want to show you something. I'm going to explain to you with just this box what all 3 or all 4 of those are. If I'm visual, I'm okay just looking at this box. If I'm auditory, I want you to tell me what's in the box. If I'm kinesthetic, I'm not going to be happy till I touch this box. If I'm auditory digital, I want to know what's in the box, when you ordered it, and when it was delivered. That will tell you your different learning styles. How many of you think you're visual? A lot of visual, okay. How many of you think you're auditory? I like less, he's in between. Are you like me, 50-50? How many think you're kinesthetic? We have a couple of kinesthetics, okay, few. Okay, how about auditory digital? Okay. You know what? There's not a right or wrong. They're all the gift you've been given of how you learn. But visual obviously is what you see. Now, this is what's interesting. The people who are visual, they need to study in a quiet place. They like study groups are not necessarily the best study for them because they need that quiet place. They also are in a classroom setting. They benefit from instructors who's using videos, maps, dry erase boards, and charts. Makes sense. They're visual, right? When visual learners learn best when trying to remember something, they can often visualize the picture of it in his or her mind. When you tell me your name when I meet you for the first time, I visualize writing it out in front of me. May have an artistic side that enjoys activities having to do with visual art or design. And they watch your lips closely. That's why the masks were so difficult on visual learners. They may not remember verbal directions. What percentage are visual learners in the world? What do you think they are? I heard 30, I heard 42. What do you think? It's 42%. More of the world is visual learners. To spot a visual learner, they may be doodling or scribbling. They're known for their dress sense. They will go above and beyond to look good rather than feel good. They're creative and they're a planner. Now, the visual learner, many times they are involved in design, photography, or architectural industries. Now, words you hear a visual person use is see, watch, view, imagine. When you start listening to people and you hear what they say, it's automatically you start listening for these. You start to learn how they learn, because when you're talking their language, you can communicate with them so much better. Auditory characteristics. They're a great public speaker. They excel in oral presentations. They are great storytellers and robust vocabulary. Buddy, you know, great storyteller? I know one in this room. First one that always comes to mind is Tom Ruich. Okay. Great memory for spoken information. They're strong listening skills. They do well reading aloud and retaining information, but they're highly distracted by background noises, and they will hear noises that you never hear. I know my husband would say at church, I'd say, the bass is so loud. And he'd go, the bass is perfect. And I'm like, oh, I keep hearing that. But it's because I hear things that others don't necessarily hear. So to take someone to Panera in those situations and you want to communicate with them, not necessarily the right place. To spot an auditory learner, they'll ask the most questions in a meeting. They like to discuss what they hear right away because they want to make sure they heard it correctly. They love listening to music regularly and typically choose an audiobook over a physical book. Keep presentations short for them because they're easily distracted, but they give the most encouragement and they're the most verbal about expressing their opinions. Okay. Words you hear an auditory use: sound, hear, listen. Kinesthetic, they're the sensory learner. We had a couple in here. Few, okay. Let us know if you think you're kinesthetic. Raise your hand again. I want to see the kinesthetic learners. Okay. Got 2 in here. Well, there's only 8% of the world that are kinesthetic. That's your smallest percentage. But let me tell you why. It's pretty exciting. Had I have known my daughter was kinesthetic growing up, I would have not kept saying, don't touch that, don't move that. I would have encouraged that. They become bored easily in a classroom. They learn through movement, the doing. They learn by doing, not viewing, if you'll keep that in mind for kinesthetics. They want to be an active participant with learning. They learn by touch. Kinesthetics should all have a pet, something that they can actually touch on a regular basis. They are hand talkers and more expressive than most. They learn quickly. They're often gifted in physical activities like running, swimming, dancing, and other sports. Is somebody laughing? I should not hear that. They wiggle, tap, shift, or swing, and they're talkative. Kinesthetics, many times you don't think are paying any attention to you because they're tapping. They're doing all these other things. Yet kinesthetics can take in so much more information than any of the rest of us can. Words you hear kinesthetics use often: feel, touch, emotion, experience. Now the auditory digital. This is a little different. Auditory digitals have a way they need to file things. They have to make sure things are making sense. They have a need to make sense of the world, to figure things out, to understand. They talk to themselves. So much at times they think they've told you things that they have never told you. Ever been accused of that? I told you that. No, you did not tell me that. But they think they did because they've had that conversation in their mind. Auditory digital also learn by working things out in their mind. They want a process. They want a system. They don't like to be spontaneous as they think things through. So if you've got an auditory digital, then you've got a lot of times that you've got people that will say, well, I want to think about that. Well, if you've been taught in sales, well, you never want to let them get away. They need to make a decision. Well, if you know they're auditory digital, you're going to have an opportunity to understand they really do need to think it through. And if you try to push them, they will go the other way. You cannot close those that are auditory digital on that first sale. Auditory digital learners. Logic plays a key role in the decision processes, as do facts and figures. They memorize by steps, procedures, and sequences. And again, like I said, slower to make decisions. To spot the auditory digital person, they're usually educated. Again, they talk to themselves. They ask for everything you have in print to consider before making a decision. They're the person that likes case studies. They like quizzes, but only if there's results with it. Terms auditory digital people use are, do you understand? Does that make sense? Did you get that? At one point, before learning this and knowing this different styles of learning, I had a gentleman I was talking to, and he kept saying, do you get that? Does it make sense? Do you get that? I wanted to say to him, I'm not stupid. I get it. But it's because that's how he learned. So he was trying to make sure that I was getting the information. So learning the style in which you take in information is important for you. It's also important for the person you're talking to, because if I know Les needs information and he wants facts and figures, I better give those to him. If I'm talking to someone who is more of a visual learner, I may talk about emotions on that side. So you see how that makes a difference in the communication? These are 4 huge keys to your success, is learning how other people take in information. Has your learning style changed? Have you thought about it any different now that we've had this conversation? Any of you changed your thoughts on what you were, or think maybe you're partial something else? Dan, what are yours?
Entirely. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Visual is how I would have identified entirely, but the auditory digital made me think, that there are times where I may not have identified that I had those needs, but when those needs were met, pushed towards me, I did better.
Right. That's great. That's a great way to put it. When they were pushed towards you. I also have a situation where I feel I cannot find any research. I've done everything I could do to find this, but I think as parents, I don't think we can influence the primary learning style, but I think you can influence the secondary. For my daughter, hers is auditory. But from the time she was born, there was always something going in our car, personal development or a story or music, something going. And so that's my own personal opinion that I think that we can influence those secondary, but I think the primary is what you were given. Les, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think for me, I think I would have, as you saw, somewhere between visual and auditory. But as I thought about what you were saying, I think we all have all of these styles to some extent. It's more like a spider diagram of which one is most dominant, which one is least dominant. Because I think, at least for me, as you were describing them, I could see myself in all four.
Can you? Not everybody can. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Dale would like to say something.
Yeah, to your point earlier about, primary, secondary, and so on. One of the things I discovered, because I'm auditory, but when I began teaching, I found that I became better in each of those categories because I had to build each into my program to deal with all the different types of learners in the student group. So you can improve in those areas.
Yeah.
It takes concerted effort.
Exactly. But it makes an effort. I mean, you have to realize, I could make them all look just like I did up here and try to make them all visual and auditory, but they're not. I'm not going to have the same success with them. I'm not going to close them in business. I'm not going to build the same relationship when I respect their learning styles. I teach this at our church for ministerial because it's important. I think if you understand this will affect your children and their children. It's that important because like I said, had I have known Cammie was 8% the kinesthetic, I would have encouraged that instead of a typical parent. Don't touch that. Don't move that, and it changes the whole perspective in life.
I have a question. So one of the things that I work with organizations to do is to have huddles, KPIs, key performance indicators, and then share those. There's some people who can look at a spreadsheet and just fall in love because they just love spreadsheets. And then I have a tendency to say, well, make sure you convert that data into charts and graphs that make it a little more visual for people. If you are somebody who just loves spreadsheets as opposed to the charts and graphs, which one are you? Are you visual? Are you auditory? Are you, which one? Auditory digital?
Typically that would be auditory digital, but there's a lot that go. I mean, I would have to listen to you for a little bit to know, but you're absolutely right. When people are visual, the more you can give them, sometimes you'll see a visual person. My husband's a visual person. He can look at the instructions and just go ahead and put it together. Where others would have to go through every little piece of it to determine, what do they do next? But good questions. Any other questions while we're in the middle here? So the next time you're meeting with someone, pay attention to the words they use. You can start to understand where they're coming from and what they're looking for. So the importance in life is to be heard and to hear people. And everyone wants their respect, and that's exactly what it is with communication. I am Karen Fox, better known as Karen the Connector. And unless you've got any other questions, we do have a question. Comment?
Your program. My wife's a visual learner and I'm auditory. So if we're taking a driving trip, if I drive and she navigates, things go beautifully. If we reverse the roles, it's a blasted nightmare. It really is.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate you saying that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we need a mic over here.
I just wanted to share that as you went through each one in the beginning, I said, oh yeah, that's me. And then you went to the next one. I was like, no, I'm this. And then so on all down the line. So yes, they're just crossing the line.
Right. You could be all four, just like you're talking about there. Or there's areas like I'm 50-50, and there's other areas that you'll be 80-20. So you've got all of them, the potential of all of them in you. And thank you for sharing that, because sometimes when you start to see the differences in them, you start to go, well, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. And that's what we work with. So thank you very much.